Good evening. Tonight we're going to walk through a framework called the Seth material, a body of teachings recorded by the writer Jane Roberts beginning in the 1960s, attributed to a personality she called Seth. This deck dresses those teachings in the language of architecture and engineering. Blueprints, source code, mechanics. That's a deliberate metaphor, and it's a useful one. But I want to be clear at the outset about what we're looking at. The Seth material is a work of channeled metaphysical philosophy. It is not science, and the framework I'm about to present has not been demonstrated empirically. I'd ask you to receive it the way you'd receive any worldview, as a coherent set of ideas worth thinking through, not as established fact. With that said, the central claim is on the slide, and everything else unfolds from it. Seth holds that consciousness creates form, not the other way around. In the conventional view, matter comes first and mind is something matter eventually produces. Seth inverts that completely. Consciousness is primary. The physical world is something consciousness builds. Hold onto that inversion, because the next 12 slides are essentially its consequences. Before we get into mechanics, here is the whole worldview in one frame. 7 pillars. 1. All that is. Seth holds that we are each immortal extensions of a single, unmanifested cosmic energy, not separate beings, but expressions of one source. 2. You create your reality. This is the load-bearing pillar of the entire system. Seth holds that the external world is a direct projection of your inner state, what the slide calls the internal theater. 3. The purpose of 3D. Physical life, in this view, is not random. Seth presents it as a deliberate learning environment, a place to practice the craft of creation. 4. Inner morality. Seth holds that true morality is intrinsic, arising from within, rather than imposed by external religious judgment. 5. Natural mind-body health. Seth holds the body's default state is health, and that illness originates in psychological conflict. I'll flag now, this is Seth's metaphysical claim, not a medical position, and we'll return to it. 6. The global village. Caring for the environment is framed as a natural extension of honoring the self. 7. Unconditional love. Seth holds the fundamental tone of the universe is non-judgmental and nurturing. Keep Pillar 2 in mind above all others. The rest of the deck is its machinery. A fair question at this point is, where does this material actually come from? This slide answers that. On the left is Jane Roberts, referred to within the material by the name Rubert. She was a physical human being, a writer, with what the slide calls a linear focus and ordinary waking consciousness. Her described role was that of the translator. In trance, she would temporarily shift her conscious focus away from 3D reality so that communication could take place. On the right is Seth, described not as a ghost or a spirit in the popular sense, but as an energy personality essence no longer focused in physical matter. Seth's described role is the teacher, taking concepts that are multidimensional and nonlinear and translating them into sequential language that a 3D mind can follow. Between them is what the material calls the psychological bridge, the channel that made the communication possible. The important word on this slide is the title, 2 aspects of one entity. Seth holds that Jane and Seth were not strangers. The key insight is stated bluntly on the slide. Seth holds that you are not, as he puts it, a bag of bones assembled by accidental chemistry. 3 claims build that case. The physical camouflage. Seth holds that both the environment and the body are specialized camouflage, purpose-built apparatus for experiencing 3D reality. The word camouflage matters. It doesn't mean the body is fake. It means the body is a costume designed for a specific stage, concealing something underneath. The illusion of permanence. Your body feels like a stable object that persists. Seth holds it is actually a continuous, pulsating projection of mental energy, recreated moment to moment rather than simply enduring. And he goes further. Cells themselves possess their own consciousness. Awareness, in this view, runs all the way down. The infinite self. Seth holds your true identity exists entirely independent of physical form. The physical senses, far from revealing reality, force consciousness into a narrow band of perception. They show you a sliver and call it the whole. The thread through all three, what you take to be solid and permanent, body, world, Seth presents as a fluctuating projection, and what you take to be yourself is far larger than the figure in the mirror. Here Seth takes on time itself. The claim, time is not a linear sequence. Past, present, and future incarnations all occur simultaneously in what Seth calls the spacious present. The slide pictures 3 lives, a 14th century life, a 20th century life, a 29th century life. Our intuition lines these up like beads on a string. One finishes, the next begins. Seth holds that intuition is simply wrong. From the larger vantage point, all 3 are happening now in parallel. Linear sequence is a feature of the 3D viewing apparatus, not a feature of reality. This carries a consequence. The slide draws out as the illusion of progress. We tend to assume the 29th century life is more advanced than the medieval one, more technology, therefore further along. Seth rejects that. Progress, in this framework, is measured by the spiritual focus and the problem-solving achieved within the specific context of each life, not by the century it occupies or the tools it has. A medieval life can be every bit as advanced as a futuristic one. So, Seth severs 2 links we treat as obvious. That time is a line, and that later means better. This slide gives us a working model of the self, through a theater metaphor, a director and an actor. The director is the entity or soul. Seth holds the entity, writes the script, sets the challenges, and holds the complete memory bank of every simultaneous life at once. It also radiates the creative energy that sustains every incarnated actor. This is the larger self we saw foreshadowed 2 slides ago, now named. The actor is the 3D self or ego, you, as you experience yourself right now. The actor is intensely focused on the immediate role and the props on the 3D stage, and crucially, has forgotten the larger production. The actor operates strictly under the rules of time, space, and the physical senses in order to solve the specific challenges of this one role. Here's the key point. This forgetting is not a malfunction. Seth holds it is deliberate design. An actor too aware of the audience and the script can't deliver an honest performance. The ego's narrow focus, its absorption in this one life, is precisely what makes the role workable. The amnesia is a feature. So when this framework calls the ego an illusion, it does not mean worthless. It means a role, purposeful, time-bound, and played by something much larger than itself. We now move from philosophy to what the deck frames as mechanics. Over the next 3 slides, Seth lays out, step by step, how thought is supposed to become matter. The first component is the electromagnetic energy unit, or EU. The concept. Seth holds that every thought and every emotion you have spontaneously projects an invisible, unique EU. You are emitting these constantly without effort or intent. They are a natural byproduct of consciousness itself. The mechanics. These units, Seth holds, are the natural emanations of all consciousness, and they exist just beneath the range of physical matter, below the threshold of detection, but not by much. In this model, they are the bridge layer between mind and the material world. The rule of intensity. This is the operative principle. The electromagnetic strength of an EU depends entirely on the intensity of the original emotion that produced it. A faint, passing thought emits a weak unit. A highly charged emotional state emits a powerful one. And Seth holds the more intense the charge, the faster it materializes into physical reality. That last rule is the practical heart of the slide. In this framework, it is not lukewarm thoughts that shape your world fastest, but emotionally charged ones, whatever their nature. If thoughts emit energy units, that energy needs somewhere to be processed. Seth's answer, space is not empty. Seth holds that space is filled with invisible intersections, points where multiple reality systems overlap. These coordinate points act as what the slide calls psychic transformers. They take the EUs we just discussed and assist in converting them into physical matter. Think of them as the infrastructure layer of reality. There are three kinds. Absolute points. Seth holds only 4 of these exist. They are the primary channels where all realities intersect, the great trunk lines of the system. Main points. Secondary transformers governing large-scale geographic materializations, the regional substations, if you like. Subordinate points. These permeate all local space. They are everywhere around you right now. Seth holds they act as amplifiers for emotional energy, and where that energy concentrates strongly enough, they can locally alter standard physical laws. The picture Seth is building. The space around you is not an inert vacuum. It is an active, structured grid, quietly processing the energy that consciousness emits. This slide assembles the previous 2 into a single 4-step sequence, the full pipeline in Seth's account from thought to thing. Step 1, the inner conception. An emotion, a desire, or a thought is generated within the psyche. Everything begins inside. Step 2, EU formation. That thought naturally emanates its invisible electromagnetic energy units. Slide 7. Step 3, point activation. Those EUs are drawn to the coordinate points, which act as psychic generators and amplify the energy. Slide 8. Step 4, gestalt or materialization. The amplified energy condenses atoms and molecules into a specific physical form. The slide's example is a chair. Inner conception to energy unit to amplification to a solid object you can sit in. And then the takeaway, which is the entire purpose of this mechanical detour. The environment is not an objective backdrop. Seth holds it is a direct, mechanized projection of mental states, both individual and collective. Notice what Seth has done across slides 7 to 9. Pillar 2 from the opening, you create your reality, could sound like a vague affirmation. Seth's move is to give it a claimed mechanism, a step-by-step process. Whether or not one accepts the mechanism, that is the structure of the argument. Having built the machinery, Seth returns to the central question. What, then, is the soul? The slide sets up a contrast. On the left, the myth, a static heirloom. Seth holds we have inherited a mistaken picture of the soul as a finite, fragile jewel, something fixed and precious, to be saved, kept unblemished, and handed back to a creator intact at the end. A possession to be protected. On the right, the reality, an expanding system. Seth holds the soul is instead an open, infinitely expanding field of potential energy and probable actions. It is not static, it is constantly growing, and it grows precisely through the simultaneous experiences of all its reincarnational personalities. Every life, lived in parallel, feeds back into it and enlarges it. And then the line that reframes everything, the soul is not something you have, it is what you are. In this framework, the soul is not an object you carry through life and protect. It is the larger system, and you are one of its expressions. This is the Deck's center of gravity. The title of the whole work, The Eternal Validity of the Soul, rests here. Eternal because it cannot be diminished, and valid because, far from needing to be returned unblemished, it is meant to be used, explored, and grown. If the soul is this vast expanding system, why don't we perceive it? Because, Seth holds, we are normally using only half our perceptual toolkit. There are 2 sets of senses. The outer senses, the camouflage. These are the familiar 5. Seth holds their function is exclusively to perceive the 3D camouflage reality. By nature, they are artificial constructs of the inner self. He compares them to highly specialized glasses, and they carry a built-in limitation. They force consciousness to perceive energy as solid objects moving through linear time, and in doing so they manufacture the illusion of separation, the strong impression that you end at your skin, and everything else is not you. The inner senses, the true perception. Seth holds these perceive the multidimensional source code beneath physical matter. They are not artificial constructs. They are the inherent, biology-independent perception of the soul itself. Their described capabilities include telepathy, clairvoyance, and the direct experience of other realities, and Seth holds they operate completely independent of space and time. The framework here, the outer senses aren't lying, but they're narrowing, a specialized instrument tuned to one channel. The inner senses, in Seth's account, are the wider receiver we already possess but rarely consciously use. This slide turns practical, and it is the one where I want to be most careful with you. Seth offers a critique of how we sleep and a proposed redesign. The societal standard, the single consolidated block of 8 to 10 hours. Seth holds this is not optimal. The claims on the slide, it builds an artificial wall between the waking self and the dreaming self. It allows chemicals and toxins to accumulate in a body that lies sluggish and immobile too long, and it results in lost dream recall and waking lethargy. The multidimensional standard, a split sleep pattern, several shorter, segmented periods across the day and night. Seth holds the bulk of physical restoration occurs within the first 5 hours, so the long tail of a single block yields little. That shorter segments more easily bridge conscious and subconscious realities, improving dream access, and that brief nighttime waking periods carry an advantage Seth attributes to a higher concentration of beneficial negative ions. I'll be direct here. This is presented as Seth's teaching, and I'm relaying it as such. It is not medical guidance, and some of these specific claims, negative ions, toxin buildup, do not reflect established sleep science. If anyone is considering an actual change to their sleep, that's a conversation for a doctor, not a slide. The final slide gathers everything into 3 concluding principles. 1. Absolute responsibility. If your thoughts mechanically form your physical environment, as slides 7 through 9 argued, then it follows Seth holds that you are the absolute architect of your own life and that there are no external victims. I'd pause honestly here. This is the most powerful idea in the system and also the one to handle with the most care. As a teaching about agency, it can be genuinely steadying. Read rigidly, as everyone is to blame for whatever befalls them. It becomes harsh and, in the face of real misfortune, untrue to most people's moral sense. The deck states it as principle. How literally one takes it is left to the listener, and I'd encourage the gentler reading. 2. The illusion is valid. The 3D world is camouflage, but Seth holds valid and purposeful camouflage, a genuine training ground for mastering the art of creation. The word illusion never meant worthless. 3. The veil is permeable. Seth holds that through the inner senses, redesigned sleep, and a loosening of rigid ego structures, you can consciously access the multidimensional power of the soul, and that you can begin now, not in some afterlife. To close, then, strip away the blueprint metaphor, and the durable, practical core of this material is simply this. Your inner state shapes your experience of the world, and your attention is worth tending with care. You need not accept the metaphysics of EU's or simultaneous time to take that seriously. Whether the rest is literally true, each of you will judge. Thank you.